When we create the next shape, we'll zoom out. When we create the next shape that we're going to do, let's do this one in here. We'll trace it with our pen tool. We'll go off and into our green object to have some overlap. We're going to make sure that the green is on top, and then we're going to use our pathfinder tool and trim that out. So let's go back to our trace layer. We'll close all that up by clicking that arrow in our layers area. Zoom in. And now we're going to trace this section right here. So we'll use our pen tool by clicking on the icon or using P on our keyboard. And now we're going to want it to not go around this path, but we are going to want to start it in a corner on that path. So we're going to start it right about here. We're going to click to lay our point down and click to lay our next point down. So be careful, because right now I actually don't have a color showing up. And if you look to the left on your panel here, you'll see that the stroke is not filled. So we need a stroke color there. We can do a couple things. We can choose the stroke color and put no fill on it, like we did previously. Or we can just, since we have no fill on the stroke right now, and we have a color in the fill, we can choose this little swap arrow here and click that. And now you can see that whatever color we had in our fill area is now our stroke line. And then we can continue using the pen tool, since we're in that actual tool, and continue to draw. So, one other thing. I went past kind of the point I needed to go past. Okay, here. Again, you can hit Command-Z or Control-Z to undo as far as you need to do in order to lay that point down where it needs to be. But when you do that, it will undo everything you've done up to that point. So you can see now my stroke and fill have reversed back to the way I did not want it. So I'm going to use the swap key again, now that my stroke has a color in it, and I'm still in my pen tool. I'm going to come back and lay my point down to where it really needs to be. I'm going to click, have my colored line. I'm going to click again, kind of central to my image line. I'm going to click again and hold because I want to create a curve, but I'm going to click right, probably central to this. Click and hold. I'm going to swing out this arm. And depending on how you swing it, you can see if I swing it this way, it kind of gets a C top to it, and I don't want that. I want it to be more like a curve. So that looks great. I'm going to release it, put another pin point down, anchor point. I'm going to put it right in the center here. I'm going to click and hold. I'm going to rotate to get a curve to that line there. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to click and hold. And you can see my curve's kind of strange there. It's not really what I want. So I'm going to undo that. I'm going to hit Control Z or Command Z depending on if you're on a PC or Mac. And I'm actually going to start another line. I'm going to start at this anchor point that I ended on. I click there. I'm going to click one more time, but make it a little bit straighter. Make it short and straight. Now I'm going to click outside of that, on that line again. Now I'm going to click and hold and rotate and get a curve. So when you're coming to a corner, you don't want to necessarily just put a point down and then you have a curve, put another point down far away. Because what will happen is you'll have that point flare out. That line will flare out. So place another point as close to that corner as you can and just make it a straight line. And then put another point down that you can bend using the handles so that you can create that curvature. So I'll put another point here, click and hold, have a little bit of a curve there. We're going to make a straight line here. So if I went just straight up here and ended on the path of this green object to where I really want it to intersect, but it'd be nice to have it intersect actually at the anchor point here, right? To where this yellow shape here, I'm at the anchor point on there, because they really meet tip to tip. So I'm going to click there, and I'm going to kind of fan out that image a little bit. Not much, but just a little. looks good. But it looks like I fanned it out too much, so I want to add a point. I'm going to go to my pen tool with the plus sign. I'm going to add a point on here. I'm going to go to my direct selection tool. I'm going to select that point by clicking and holding and then dragging it. Now you may have to zoom in order for it not to snap like it is. So I'm going to release my mouse and I'm going to zoom in a little bit to that area. I'm going to click that anchor point again while I'm on my direct selection tool, and you can see I have more control over moving this anchor point because I'm zoomed in. So move that right under that line. We do want to move this one too, or change this handle so we can change the curve. So we're going to move that a little bit. Looks a little better. And we're going to move the point by clicking on that. And that looks a lot better actually. So now we're going to zoom out. That looks good. We'll put another line down, but remember, we're not going to trace this line. So anytime you have lines that, or boundaries of shapes that butt together that you're tracing, don't draw that line a second time if you've already drawn it in one of your shapes. You want to make sure you take a point from the line you've been drawing, come into your shape, and then come back to the other end point. However you need to do it. If you need to put down multiple points to do that, that's fine also. So we're going to do that right now. We're going to go into our pen tool, our regular pen tool again. We're going to continue with our line by going to our anchor point and clicking that. Now we're going to come in and put another line down. And now we're going to finish off where we started with our anchor point on this third shape we're drawing. Okay? So now that's closed up. So now we're going to go to our regular selection tool, or hit V, and we want to fill on this because we can't use the Pathfinder tool again until we do a fill. So instead of leaving an outline on this and adding a fill in it, we're just going to reverse the two again. We're going to use the swap tool where the fill and stroke are located on the toolbar on the left. We're going to switch it. Okay? One thing we do notice is that the shape we drew that overlaps the shape that is perfect with our alignment on our tracing or on our image, that shape is not how it should look. So we actually want to put it behind our green image, and by doing that it will let the Pathfinder know that the outline portion we want to keep of the two parts that overlap is the line that's on the green shape itself. So we want to right click. We can right click and we can hit arrange, we can hit send backwards, or as we did previously, we can go to our trace image, which seemed a lot easier. Just keep that panel open. We can go to that new shape we drew, which is on top here, and we can move it below that darker green one. Okay? And now that looks great. So we need to select more than just this image in order to do our trim with our Pathfinder. So we want to select the green image and the other yellow image, just in case we've overlapped some with that other yellow image. Now we're going to hit trim on our Pathfinder. And now if you look over in your layers, you'll see again that it's been grouped. So we want to ungroup these. So when we come with our selection tool and hover over this piece, we can right click and we can ungroup. And now you'll see back in your layers board that everything is ungrouped. But the boundaries that need to be there are there, the shared ones. Okay? So you'll continue on with your piece by tracing this way. If you need to make lines and only lines, you can just lay a line down and not make a closed shape. You'll use the pen tool in the same way. So we'll go to a line on our drawing here. We have a line right here. So if we just wanted to draw that line, we'd be in our pen tool, our regular pen tool. So we'll click that tool or click P on our keyboard. And then make sure you actually have a stroke. designated for the pen tool, which right now we don't. So we're just going to swap these to make life easier. And we're going to click at the end of this area where everything looks like it intersects. Click once, and then again, if we click at the end of this and click a second time, it'll make one straight line. If we do want to change the thickness of this line or make it dashed, we just need to go into our stroke menu, whether it's on our right-hand toolbar or whether it's in our top bar where we go under Windows and Stroke, we click that to open it. So if we want to change the weight, the thickness of the actual stroke, we can either hit the arrow tool to go up. You can see how my line's getting thicker. We can go down with it, or we can even type in 0.5, say for instance. Then have a really thin line. But in order for you to see the next step I'm going to do, I'm going to make this line a little bit thicker. So I'm going to make at least 3 points. So say we didn't want a straight line, or say we didn't want the line to end with this rectangular end here or this rectangular end here. We can actually change the cap on the line. We can make it rounded, where it's softer, or we can do what's called a projection gap, which it projects it past the anchor point. You see that? The line is projected past the anchor point. We're going to actually leave ours rounded, just because with our composition, it seems to go the best with it. Now, say we didn't want a line that was solid. Say we wanted a broken line. We can create a dashed line by clicking on the dashed button here, and all of a sudden, it opens up the default for this. So this default has a 12-point dash, or I can add a gap in of 6 if I wanted to. Hit enter, and it'll change your line. So play with that in regards to the numbers. If we wanted this at a 3 and hit enter, our dash would look a lot different. So you want to see kind of what style of a dashed line you want on your line. And that'll depend on how long you want the dash to be, which you'll enter in here, and then how long you want the gap to be between those dashes, which you'll enter here. Now, if we enter another dash here, let's say we enter in 6 here. Let's see what happens. We'll hit enter. And now you can see we have a variation in the dashed line. So we have, all of a sudden, we have the 3-point dash, and then the 6-point dash. And then we have a gap right here of 12. So if we want another size gap of 3 again, or of 12 again, we'll enter in 12 and hit enter. And then we'll have this alternating style of a line and lengths of line. So these dashes, the point is the actual length of the line. So you want to play with that and see kind of what you want for that. If you have just multiple little dash lines and they're irregular, my advice would be just to trace those as independent lines rather than trying to figure out what the size of the dash is and the size of the gap is for each of those. So again, you'll just continue with tracing the rest of your image in order to create the shapes and the parts that are your pieces. Okay? I hope this helps you out, and this tutorial helps guide you through the process of tracing and creating your shapes. The next tutorial I'll have for you, we'll talk about how you get your swatch colors that are in your painting into your actual composition of your pattern for your textile.